So in the previous video, we started our challenge for Autoboxing and Unboxing, and we've implemented the customer and branch classes. So let's go ahead now and implement the bank class, which is the third component. And just as a recap, what we're wanting to do with a bank is we want the ability to add a new branch. We also want to add a customer to that branch with the initial transaction amount. We also want the ability to add transactions for an existing customer for that branch. And finally, we also want to show a list of customers for a particular branch and optionally display a list of the transactions for those customers. So first things first, let's create our class. So the class we're creating is bank. We're just going to call it bank. And we need to assign a bank name, even though we're probably not going to use it. We'll actually just use that as a name of the actual bank. And we need to create an array list, in this case of branches, because a bank, of course, can have multiple branches. So we're going to do that with an array list. Right, an array list of branch. We're going to call that branches. So the constructor is going to be a simple one. When we're creating a new bank, it's literally just going to be the name. But also, as you've seen me do in other classes in the constructor, we want to initialize the array list. So I'm going to do branches equals new array list. So we're going to initialize that so that's ready to be used. So the first one we need to, or first method we need to create is going to be the add branch. So we're going to create that much very similar to how you saw me adding the code for customers, for adding customers and so forth. It's something similar. So it's going to return a Boolean. It's called add branch, and the string, the parameter is going to be passed out as a string, and it's going to be called branch name. We're going to do something similar, like if find branch name. If that is equal to null, then we're going to go ahead and then add it. So this dot add, this dot branches dot add. It's going to be a new branch. It's going to be branch name. So we're going to return true, and if we don't get to this point, we're going to return false. So very similar to the code that you saw in the previous video. We're testing to see whether the branch exists. If it returns null, it means that that name hasn't been used before. So in other words, the branch doesn't exist, and we can safely add that to our array list of branches. And obviously we're calling the branch constructor in that case and just passing along the branch name. So that's add branch. Nothing complicated about that at all. Next thing we need to do is we need to add the method for add customer. So that's going to actually need, because we can potentially have multiple branches, we need to, every time we add a customer, we need to specify the branch name, the customer name, and the initial transaction when we're adding a customer. And likewise for the customer transactions, we need to do the same. So we're going to do public Boolean again, add customer, and the parameters will be branch name, customer name, and of course the initial amount. This is when the customer walks in and wants to open an account at this branch. So what we're going to do then is we're going to test to see whether it's on file. So we'll do branch equals find branch name, and because we're adding, we want to put if branch name. So we can't find the branch name. There's a problem with the branch name. So if that returns null, that means there's actually a problem. So we actually want to do a test if we're not equal to null. In other words, we're going to only be able to add a customer if the branch name exists. So if we've got the branch name, it means that we're able to proceed and actually add that. So at this point, we can actually do a return, and I'll explain this shortly, but we can do return branch dot new customer, and the parameters for that were customer name and initial amount. So what we've done there is we just saved a line of code. We could have actually stored here a Boolean to return what the answer was to that. So we go back and have a look at this code. Public, we're calling the new customer code, if you recall, and that's doing the test there to see if it's equal to null. The customer wasn't on file, we're going to add it, and then we're returning true. So what we've really done here, by just doing a return branch.newCustomer, not only are we executing the code to add the customer, but we're also going to return the status of that as well to the calling process. And obviously it gets down to here, we're going to return false, which means that we weren't able to actually store the customer. So that's add customer. And again, we're checking to see first whether the branch exists, and then we're leaving the check to see whether the customer can be added to the appropriate class. So we're actually calling the branch code to do the checking in there. So you can see how we're separating the data validation into the right areas. So we're not putting huge amounts of data validation in one spot. This is one of the keys to object-oriented programming, to make sure that you're trying to validate only a specific thing in a specific area, and therefore your code is then sort of more compact and more sort of along the lines of a black box functionality, and it's easy to maintain because there's fewer lines of code and just really easy to understand as well. So that's adding a customer for the first time. And again, just the point I want to make here is that you can see we're actually calling the other code. So we're calling the branch code here for the new customer. So it's going into the branch class to perform that code. We're still calling the actual code from the bank class, but the branch code has got the code to do the processing of this case of the new customer. And we're trying to keep the functionality relating to each class separate. Okay, so that was add customer. The next one was for adding transactions. I'm going to call that one add customer transaction because it's going to perform a similar role. So it'll be public boolean add customer transaction. And we still need the branch name. So it's branch name. And it's going to be customer name again. And it's going to be an amount, which is the transaction amount. So we'll do the same thing. We're going to do a test to see whether the branch exists first. So branch equals find branch name. And likewise, for in this case, if the branch isn't found, if there's a problem with it and we can't find the branch, we obviously can't continue. So we can put if branch is not equal to null. It means that it was able to be found, and we can actually go ahead and actually call the code. So to do that, we can do return branch.add customer transaction, customer name, and amount, like so. And if we get down to here, we can return false. So really is operating very, very much similar to the add customer method. The only difference was we actually had a separate method for a new customer and for adding another transaction. So that's really all the only difference that those two methods are really doing. But again, we're using the branch code. We're actually calling the code within that particular class, which is the way we want to do it. We want to separate our code wherever possible. Next, we need to implement the find branch. And to do that, we can go back to our branch, find customer. You can really just copy that and just change a few things because essentially it's the same code. So we're just going to paste that in. And we're not going to return a customer. We're going to return a branch. So it's going to be branch, and this should be branch as well. Branch, and it'll be branch. We go through checking for branches in our find branch code. Branches, and would be a branch. Might have actually been quicker to type it in. Checked branch. Check branch. And I'm going to go copy and paste to fix that up. Oops. All right, so there's our find code. It's accepting, and I'll change that as well. We'll call that branch name. And I think it would have been quicker to type it in, but anyway. So we've got our find branch method, accepting branch name as the parameter, going through all the entries in our array list, checking to see whether there's a match with the branch name that has been sent to this method. If there is, we return the branch record, the object that's in the array list, in other words. Otherwise, if we go right through the loop and we can't find anything, then we're returning null, which means there wasn't a match. So that's literally all that's doing. You've seen that in operation before. Now, the next one that we want to implement, going back to our main, we want to actually implement this one now. Show a list of customers for a particular branch and optionally a list of their transactions. So that's probably a more meaty part of the code. So we're going to make a bit of space here. Let's implement that. So to do that, we're going to create a method. We're just going to call it list customers. So we're going to call it public. We're still going to call it, even though it's going to just display a list, we're going to return a Boolean in case the branch wasn't found. So that calling process will know that. So we're going to still pass the branch name because we still need that branch name to search for. And we're going to use a Boolean called show transactions. And show transactions is going to be set to true if we want a list of transactions for customers, and false if we only want to see the customer names. So again, the same code at the start, branch equals find branch name, If branch is not equal to null, it means we found a match, we can process it. Otherwise, we're going to put a return false down here, which means there was a problem finding, in this case, the branch. Okay, so now that we've actually got that, so what we'll do first is we're going to print out a message. And the message I'm going to put is customers for branch plus branch dot get name. Now I could have just used branch name there as well, because obviously if there was a match, it means that branch name was correct. But because we're using the branch object, I'm putting branch in there as well, just so it's really clearer to the code, to the person reading the code, I should say, that what we're trying to do. And we put customer details for branch. So the next thing we actually need is a list of our customers, because we know which branch we're dealing with. So we want to actually get a list of customers that are part of the branch that we've just retrieved. So to do that, we're going to create a variable, and it's going to be a list of customer records. We're going to call that branch customers. And we're going to use branch dot. Now, at the moment, we haven't implemented that. So what we really want to do here is just create a getter for the list of customers from the branch, effectively. So we can just go back here and just add a getter to that. Easiest thing to do would probably be to just to add the getter there for our get customers, and we can use that, and that's going to return the list of customers for that particular branch. So if we do that now, dot get customers. So at this point, we've now got the list of customers for the branch that we're looking for. So we need to go through a for loop and print some of these out. So I put for int I equals 0, I less than, of course it's branch customers dot size I plus plus. We're going to print a message out here, and we'll put customer. This is the customer we're working on. So we'll put branch customers. What we'll do there is we'll actually put customer branch customer equals, just to stop us having to repeat ourselves here, branch customers dot get I. So that's the current entry that we're actually working on there now. So we can put branch customer dot get name, and the other thing we'll just put in square brackets here is just the number that we're working on, just sort of the loop entry, which is just for our purposes. So we're going to show that's the customer, and that's showing the name of the customer. And if you recall, we said optionally show the transaction. So we're going to put if show transactions. So this code will only get executed if show transactions is true. Then what we're going to do there is, of course, we now need to get a list of transactions for those customers. So first I'm going to put a message to put transactions like so. Now we need an array list of our doubles, of our transactions for that customer. So to do that, we can put an array list double. We'll call that transactions. And that's going to be equal to our branch customer dot get transactions. So we're going to return that list of transactions on file for that specific customer. Now that we've done that, we need to actually do another loop now and loop through, because of course there can be multiple transactions, and print each one of those out. So to do that, we're going to put for int j equals 0. Now notice I'm doing j there because I'll try and put I there, because we're already within a loop. At the above us, you can see we're going to get an error to say that I has already been defined, in the scope, as you can see. So we need a j here, and I'll just go through that again shortly so it's clear. And it's going to be j is going to be less than, in this case it's transactions.size, j plus plus, and then we're just going to print out, and what we'll do is we'll actually print out the transaction number as well. So I'm just going to use square brackets plus, and we'll start counting from 1, like so, instead of from 0. That's the transaction number, and then we'll put amount plus, and of course this is going to be transactions dot get j. I nearly fell for that trap myself. Now I could put dot double value there, but we're using unboxing here, so I'm just going to leave that like so. And I think I made a typo here. So that definitely needs another one there anyway. Oops. And whoops, I had a typo there. So that's what it should be. Okay, so just going to go through this again so you're clear on what we're trying to do here. We're starting off on here and we're actually getting a list of all the customers for the particular branch. So therefore the looping is starting using the variable I and we're going through that. But then optionally we had this show transactions, and if that was set to true when we call it, the idea of that is to return, to show rather, a list of all the transactions for a particular customer. So consequently we need to have a second loop, and because we're looping within a loop, we need to use a different variable name. So the whole purpose of this method again is to list all the customers for a given branch and optionally all the transactions for each customer. And that's effectively what we're doing here. The other thing I might do here is up here, I'll put it as I. I'm going to put I plus 1 there. And what that's doing is just going to show just the number starting from 1 and show the list of different customers so we can see those when we're actually going through and outputting it. And the other thing we need to do, if we've successfully been through the loop here and we actually want to return at that point, I'm going to put an else here, else, return false, because that would actually indicate there was an error. And what I'm going to do is clear that up. And here I'm going to put return true. So basically the code is here. So if branch is not equal to null, we're going to print out the customer names and optionally the transactions, then return true. That's what this first line here is doing. Otherwise, if the branch in fact was null, we're going to return false, which really signifies to us that we couldn't find the branch. Now, incidentally, these for loops, and because we're using .size, and because we've got an array list that's been initialized, if there are no customers on file, then it's still going to work. It just won't actually print any customers out. That's the beauty about using these functions and making sure the array lists are initialized. This will handle array lists of size 0. You're not going to get an error or anything like that because of the way we've actually implemented it. All right, well, this video has gone on and on again. So we've now actually implemented the bank, the branch, and the customer. So we're actually done with the 3 major components. The only thing left for us to do, which we'll now do in the next video, is just to write some test code to actually make sure this all works. Add a bank, add some branches, add some customers, and just check that the customer transactions that we add will also work. So we'll do that in the next video.